Hi, Mike here. You're watching Scout Restoration Yukon. In this video, I will inspect the wiring harness, test all the wires for continuity, test the gauges, test the switches.
Bonus! At the end of the video, I will replace the broken speedometer glass with new glass.
I hope you like it. Let's get to work. If you want to help, please subscribe to Scout Restoration Yukon. It's free. Mike Morrow, over and out. Hi, Mike here. So I have all this wiring to sort out. So I have to meticulously go over this wiring. This is my constant voltage regulator right here. It's bolted and grounded to the back of the temperature gauge. So 12 volts goes in here, and it converts it to 5 volts pulsating AC, which goes to this side of the temperature gauge, and then it goes to the oil pressure gauge, and it goes to the fuel gauge. So it supplies 5 volts to each gauge to make them run. So what I want to do is test it. So I'm going to disconnect the output and disconnect the input. I have a small 12 volt ATV battery, and so the negative goes to the ground and the positive lead goes to the input side of the regulator. So now, I have my voltmeter here. So if I go from ground to my positive, I get 12 volts. Now when I go to the output side, it's pulsating up to 5, up and down to 5 volts. That's what we want. So this regulator works. So I've got a sender here. I've got the power on the back of the dash. So it's getting the 5 volts to the gauge. Now I'm connecting the gauge to the sender. And as you can see, the gauge is moving to the full position. Now, so it's going back again. Of course, it doesn't work very well because this sender is junk. But you can see that the gauge moves, albeit slowly. It's going back down to empty. You see that? Move up a bit more. Now I move this all the way down. It's going back up to full. So that's tested. So the fuel gauge works. Good to know. So I'm using the same technique to check
the oil pressure gauge.
So using the variable resistor in the fuel level sender, I'm able to establish that this gauge works. It doesn't tell me how accurate it's going to be, but I'm looking at these gauges and I have the feeling they've all been replaced. There it goes back down again. So the gauge is reacting to the change in resistance. Now we will try the temperature gauge. So the temperature gauge works too. So I've established that all the gauges function. We'll see how accurate they are later on. Now it's going back down again. So that's functioning fine. Attention fellow Scout enthusiasts. Thanks for watching. I hope that you're getting useful insights from my videos. If I can earn 1,000 subscribers, I will be able to create Scout videos for a long time. Please like and subscribe so that we can continue this journey for years to come. I will show all the details. Over and out. Now that I know all the gauges work, I'm going around. I've got a little brush, and I'm working a little bit of isopropyl alcohol into all the tanks on the connectors, and all the connectors, spades. So put this isopropyl on there, like that. And then I have a little flat file. I can just scratch it a little bit. Put some alcohol, and then I just gently blow it. It's compressed there. And that helps. As I go around cleaning everything, cleaning all the contacts and everything, I find things wrong. And for example, on this plug here, I discovered a bare wire. So with my tool here, I'm able to release that and pull the wire out. Then I was able to tape it up because it was just a little bit bare on the end. Now I can just put it back in there, back in here, in the black plug. Just push it back in until it clicks and locks into place. So one by one, I'm fixing all these little problems. I've suspended the dashboard from my rolling gantry so I can later on move it over to the truck and suspend it inside the cab of the truck while I take care of the wiring.
To protect the paint, the instrument cluster is sitting on a cushion in front of the dash. I fed the wiring harness through the hole so that it's all sitting on the other side of the dash.
So moving right along, we go to the other side of that, the rest of our wiring harness, the ignition switch, which I've labeled what a lot of the wires do. I managed to determine that. And this is the headlight switch here, and it's damaged. And this toggle switch, this three-way toggle switch here,
it switches the fuel gauge between tanks.
And this plug here goes through the bulkhead, through the firewall.
It's for the fuel sender units and the signal lights and clearance lights.
This one here plugs into the steering column. And so one little test I was able to do was to determine if these dash lights worked or not. So this harness continues along to here, and then this plug here, which I've cleaned up as best I can, goes through the firewall, and this is what you see inside the engine compartment. So the main engine compartment wiring harness plugs in here and here, and these are the power leads go on here, which go directly to the ammeter. These blue wires, if you see these heavy blue wires here, if I get around the other side, maybe you can see better. These heavy blue wires go negative and positive side of the ammeter. I've already installed this duct for the defrost, air duct here. The other thing I forgot to mention, in the manual, you have this electrical circuit identification, which gives you numbers like number 1, generator field circuit, right? So the wires are numbered. Some of them still have the numbers on them. See this wire here, it says 115. So if I go to my book, see the wire 115, directional signal, left turn, rear. So in other words, that wire goes to the rear signal light. So that'll help a lot when I get to the point where I'm trying to figure out exactly where everything goes.
Hi, Mike here, back on the dash. I just got some parts. The first parts I'm going to install are these two 356 bulbs for the signal light indicators. This is pretty straightforward. They just go in here, and in here. And they work, but I'm replacing them anyway, because I may as well have new bulbs.
Before working on the headlight switch, I'm going to install these 7 clips, and then I'm going to temporarily install the instrument cluster. That'll give me more wire, more room on the other side to work on the headlight switch. So this is just temporary, but it gets it out of my way.
Because the new headlight switch has a smaller stem, the original knob can't work. So I will return this switch. Now I will replace the speedometer glass. This is a picture of the speedometer glass before I replaced it.
This is the original speedometer. The odometer reads 45,333 miles. Unfortunately, the glass was broken, so I had to take it apart. In order to take it apart, I had to remove this chrome ring on the face that was crimped on So I had to go around with a screwdriver and gently open up the crimp all the way around several times until I had that crimp open. Then I was able to remove the ring with the broken glass.
And this beveled ring that acts as a spacer between the glass and the speedometer face and needle.
And there's a seal here. So now I will attempt to put it back together after I clean it up. I'm using Never Dull to clean up the chrome. It's very effective. Does a good job. Now I'm polishing the chrome ring with wax paper, like for baking. So I'm installing the seal
Into the chrome ring.
and put the piece of glass on top of the seal.
And then the spacer ring. The speedometer housing goes on top of the spacer ring.
I'll try using these homemade hammers. Now I'm pressing down on the lip and very slowly recrimping the flange. And it's working quite well. Like everything else, it takes time.
I just used a piece of regular window glass.
So that worked out quite well. Now I'm going to finish the job with this small brass punch. So quite happy with that. New glass in the speedometer. I'm lubricating the speedometer cable with 3-in-1. Just put it in the vise and squirt a little bit in every once in a while. Turn the cable a little bit, and eventually it goes all the way through. In conclusion, that was a good start on the dash, but there's a long way to go. So far, I'm lucky. Everything seems to work. In my next video, I found the 1967 Scout 800 full of dents, but no rust. So I removed the dash. I hope you like it. If you want to help, please subscribe to Scout Restoration Yukon. Over and out.